Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app and use the promo code CHGO to sign up, just like I did earlier today. Get ready to go. Super Bowl week. We are here. Happy Thursday. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Delmendo. It's also the NBA trade deadline getting ready to happen in about an hour or less, actually. And guys, I know everybody's probably currently watching the CHGO Bulls podcast live as they're going through the trade deadline. I just want to say I look forward to the day when the Cubs trade for Ohtani, and it's just as big a story as Kevin Durant getting traded today. That's what I'm looking forward to.
If the Cubs trade for Ohtani, it'd be the biggest news in CHGO sports history.
Yes.
Yeah. At this point, yeah.
And easily.
Easily. There would be no you could not no.
There's no argument.
Exactly.
There's no comparison. There's no argument.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that day, fellas. I look forward to that day.
As an NBA fan, I love this time of the year, but it's like I always compare it to baseball, and it's like as far as trade deadlines go, nothing compares to baseball. There's the volume of moves, the impact of the moves. I mean, I guess the impact is a little different just because basketball, it's easier for like a single player to impact a team than baseball.
True.
But just like the sheer amount of moves and sheer amount of impact moves you get at the trade deadline, and it usually feels like every single team is a part of it in baseball. Like there's nothing like it. So like that last week of July leading up to it is always like nothing compares to it in any other sport, in my opinion.
That said, we sat there, Cody and I, waiting for the massive trade to come on the trade deadline, right, for the Cubs, and maybe it did or maybe it didn't. When you talk about the Efros
Dusty
deal,
Baker's fault.
I have a feeling the Bulls guys are going to go through the same thing today. They're going to sit here all day waiting for the trade, and then they're going to be left with nothing but the microphone.
They're going to run it back.
We'll see. We'll see. I hope not, but I feel like that's the way it's going.
Knowing how the Reinsdorfs run things, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world.
Yeah.
The way the Bulls are being run, and I see you, Collada. You want Cubs talk. Well, here's a baseball thing. You want to talk about the Bulls, and you compare to how the White Sox are run. It's so comparable. Like, and Jerry has like no say really with the Bulls, and it's just the entire family. Like the way both organizations are ran, it's like in a way it's a blessing that all of us here are Cubs fans. That way we only have to deal with one Reinsdorf team once a year. Because I can't imagine being a White Sox and a Bulls fan. And be a Bears fan at the same time. You're just miserable, bro. You're absolutely miserable. At least the Cubs have given us something to celebrate in the last decade, and there's some buzz about this team going to spring training. So I'm not inviting White Sox fans to hop on the wagon. I'm just saying that, when things are not great here, just remember that.
That's right.
And there's the other kind of comparison is like when you look at what the Bulls are doing. And I think we're kind of expecting, like, I'll be shocked. And maybe not shocked is the right word, but like, I don't know if I'm giving it like a full 50-50 or if I'm leaning like, oh, the Bulls are going to blow it up as they should. Like they should try to find a way to trade Levine or DeRozan or whatever it is. I get the feeling they're going to run it back and they're going to keep those guys and see if they can, try to win with this group, which I think we've seen all season. It's anyone that's watched this season, but the comparison I give it is, when you look at 2021, that Cubs team wasn't going to win the World Series again, right? Like we knew that as much as those guys were beloved in Wrigleyville on the north side of Chicago, they weren't going to win with a core of Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo. Kyle Schwarber was already gone by then, but then so they weren't going to win at that point. And as tough as that was to say, it's just after 2016, it wasn't going to get back to that point. So at least the Cubs did what they had to do, right? As much as that sucked for Cubs fans, at least they did. And blew it up.
Some argue that the record was about nearly the same as the Atlanta Braves at the time, and that team went on to win the World Series. So,
yeah,
I agree. I agree with what you're saying.
They went on an 11-game losing streak. The Braves were coming up. Okay, the Braves were coming up as the Cubs.
They made a bunch of like minor deals, and then somehow turned into the best team in the game in October. Like that's just baseball, man. But again, I agree. What they did was the right move, even though I still think keeping one would have been okay as well. But whatever. Why are we talking?
What they had
I'm just saying, I think the Cubs have a trade coming up in the next year and a half that will be bigger than anything you will see going down in the NBA trade deadline right now, including Kevin Durant going to the Suns. Because who really cares about the Suns? Sorry, PHNX. I just believe they have a monster trade eventually coming, and I'm excited to see what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be the right trade or the wrong trade, but I think we're going to be in a position to sit here in the next year and a half and talk about a trade that will go down in Cubs history as either a big win or a big loss. And either way, it's going to be fun. I'd prefer it be the big win because that would be more fun. Today's show, we're going to talk about our position evaluations. We'll continue that. We'll go third base and starting pitcher today. And I have one little nugget at the end to throw at you. Cody also wants to talk about another top 100 list that's out. Always got one of those, right? Right? Do you or don't you?
I mean, whatever. We can talk about it.
Yeah, we'll see what we get.
Come into Slack, and we're supposed to be talking about Hayden Wisniewski today, and we weren't able to get the file like right for the show, so we're gonna save it for next week.
Next week.
So we know this show is prime example of how good we are at our jobs because we just we're versatile, Luke. Like we just flip the switch and here we are. We're doing.
And now we got a big teaser for when pitchers and catchers report. We've got the Wisniewski interview ready to go for it.
Yeah.
See, now we've set up next week to be the biggest week in CHGO Cubs history. Just to be massive. We've set it up for. All right, let's start with third base because I kind of put it in the title. I think personally that there's a chance third base is the Achilles heel for this team if you say they're not going to get to the postseason, whether it's a wild card winning division. Where I think that the weakness could come on this team. Now, it might be not enough power. It might be they're not good enough at another position. But I think the biggest questions still come at third base. I hope that Christopher Morel is the answer to those questions. The only concern I have about Christopher Morel at third base is not whether or not he'll provide enough power. He had, I think, 16 home runs as a rookie last year. Maybe wisdom gives you some, but it was the defensive stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It was how he played defensively at third base. Will he be good enough to keep him over at third and let him develop his offensive game as well? Do you see a way that this could be? I don't want to say an X factor because there's 1,000 of them on this team, but do you think it's a key position for the team this year?
Well, yeah, I definitely think it like you said, it could be the Achilles heel. I think if the Cubs are in it in July, like, whether it's in division or second wild card spot, whatever, I'm not saying go out and trade for the best third baseman in the game, but you might need to go get some help. Like, I think, and I only say that because no matter what, we know this team's ceiling for this year. So I'm not telling you to go shell the farm for a big name at that position. Of course, I don't know the third baseman on the free agent market off the top of my head going into 2024, but I'm just saying that I think getting some depth there could help. Even Wisdom and Morel, they're fine. Like it could turn out to be very good if Morel takes a step next season, and if Wisdom can get back to playing defense like he did in 2021. Like I still don't understand how he went from being a pretty average to above average defensive third baseman to just not good last year. I don't understand that because he showed that he can be a very solid defensive third baseman that brings you power. That's the one thing that they'll both do. You want to talk about how this team doesn't have a lot of power, at least all the critics do. Well, at third base, they do have some decent power if you look at it. Like Wisdom might lead the team in homers or at least be top 5 in homers on the team. And Morel, like you said, hit 16 last year. It's just, are we sure that they're going to do those things? No, we're not. So yeah, it's kind of like what we said about center field yesterday and how like it could be great and it could be really bad. So I hope we get a little bit of the middle. That way the Cubs are in position to potentially maybe make a trade for a third baseman at the deadline or, something of that sorts. So
Trade? Did you say trade? Manny Machado trade?
Hey, if it's Manny Machado,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't know any of the main names on third base at the third base market for free agents in 2024 off the top of my head, but like we can't sit here and sugarcoat it, Luke. Like we know that this is probably the weakest position on the team, and they got some guys on the farm too, but they're not highly touted. So I don't know. But I will say that I would like to see Morel just play third base regularly. So, like, if you don't have any injuries in center field, you're going to see him mainly at third. I'd love to see him play third consistently and see if he can fix those the throwing issues. He can field the ball. Mm-hmm. It's the throwing across the diamond that he has struggled with. That's why watching him play short and second was actually like, oh, wow, he can do this. I feel good about him actually fielding the ball at third. It's more about can he make the throws across the field, across the diamond to first base, like consistently. And if he can do that, then I think that he can, be a very solid third baseman for the Cubs this year. And I don't think if that is the case, if we get that version of Christopher Morel, then I don't think that third base will be the biggest need at the deadline then. But I just don't know if it'll happen, and that's why I have questions.
Yeah, he had, according to StatCast, he was in the 99th percentile in arm strength, Morel. Part of that obviously comes from his throws from the outfield. Definitely boosts it, but even then, it's like he has a strong arm. Mm-hmm. Anyone with a strong arm, like that's what you need at third base. That's the biggest arm on the infield. But, one of the best arms on the team is going to come from third base. So he has to have the arm strength. It's like Cody said, it was can he make accurate throws across the diamond,
right.
which is what he struggles with, right?
Yeah, accurate throws. That's what I want. Yeah.
So if he can start to figure that out, and maybe that comes with more consistency at third base. Again, he played like every position he could possibly play last year. So, he's changing the arm strength, the arm angle, whatever it is, playing second, playing shortstop, playing outfield. If he gets a lot of time at third base and just gets more consistency, making those throws every single day, I think you could start to see him find that accuracy that you need at third base, because he has the arm strength that's there and that's going to be there. If he can get more consistently, just keep that muscle memory of making those throws from third base, I think you could see a really big improvement from him from the accuracy standpoint. And then in that sense, it's like if he can kind of find that form that he had the first couple months of the season, before he started going down, if he can kind of get back to where he was to begin the year last year and kind of just stay there, even improve upon it, but get on base at a high clip, limit the strikeouts a little bit, hit for power. If you can have all that stuff at the plate and give you better defense than he had last year, like you're looking at the answer at third base. Maybe not like long term, but at least for this year, because that's a productive, solid player on both sides of the ball, and that's at this point what the Cubs are looking for. They don't know if they have that with Morel. Don't know if they have that with Patrick Wisdom. They obviously don't know if they have that with like Zach McKinstry. There's a lot of questions, as Luke has been saying, questions at third base. But if Morel can start to do that, or if Wisdom can cut down on the strikeouts and put the ball in play more often while keeping the power going, and he can discover that defensive form he had in 2021, then you're starting to talk about like, hey, that Cubs actually have good, cheap third baseman. They may not have to worry. No, I won't say that. Like they should still try to go out and get the best third baseman they can get. They want to have the best players they can get at every position, right? But then if Morel and Wisdom start to figure it out, maybe that spot on the roster starts to get down, go down the to-do list a little bit versus being like kind of near the top.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I heard from the two of you were a lot of ifs, and it's the one position where it takes me back a year ago to all of the positions where we were like, if, and I feel like third base is maybe the biggest if on the team. But there is depth there too. Like center field is another one where we can say if because of Bellinger, but at least third base has more depth than center field. I'll give it that. You have the 4 M's, right? You have Wisdom, and then you have the 4 M's. You have Morel, who's the youngest option, and has the versatility to play other places. But then you have Mastrobuoni, you have McKinstry, and dare I say Madrigal before them. So, I don't know if any of those choices would thrill most fan bases around Major League Baseball, but they sure have some options. I don't know if any are great options, but they have built up depth to where they can, at the very least, continue to rotate in and out until they hope they find a hot bat. Hot bat or the best defender. I don't know which it'd be.
I'll say this about Wisdom. Like, Colada says Wisdom equals home run or strikeout, 400 at bats, 200 strikeouts. Like, yeah, that's kind of what he's been, right?
Yeah.
I'll say this though, like I'm cautiously optimistic about his approach heading into 2023 because the lineup's significantly different, and they're not asking him to be the middle of the order guy. I think that if you put him in somewhere between 6 and 8 in that lineup, he can give you the value of the type of player he is, which is just a very solid role player. Because we talk about all the time. Remember last season where everyone was like DFA Wisdom, like in April, and then his strikeout rate started to come down, and you saw the value that he brought in terms of his bat. And actually, he's leading the team in homers. And, again, I'm not saying he's great. I'm not saying that he is, one of the best third basemen or power hitters in the league. I'm just saying he's a very solid role player. I think of guys like, it's not necessarily the position, but when I think of him, I think of guys like Adam Duvall or something like that. Like they're just solid role players who can hit. And so when you add the better talent in this lineup now compared to last year, and you put Wisdom, in the middle towards the bottom of that lineup, there is not nearly as much pressure on him to, drive runs in. So I think that could be a plus for him in terms of becoming a better hitter. He led the league in strikeout rate last year. Like, obviously you don't want that, right? I will say, though, it was lower than the year before. He's striking out 40% of the time in 2021. Then, like I said, I think it was around 33% last year. So if he can even cut it down to like 29, I think that's a win for him. And if they're able to hit him in parts of the lineup that I think benefit just like who he is at this point in his career, then I think, he can be a very solid role player. And honestly, like, he's prototypical DH in today's game. Honestly, like I don't see a problem in having him. Now, do I want him getting 600 play appearances? I don't know, but I'll just say that I think that looking at him cautiously optimistic is okay going into this season, because we've seen worse players come through this organization.
I do think that the
last
Cubs,
couple of years,
depending on what they get out of other positions, that may allow them to shift their plan, whatever it might be, over at third base. Okay. So if Bellinger gives you all-star level play in center field and he gives you the power, and you get a little bit from Mancini too, or Mervis breaks through and provides some power, or you start getting more from Seiya, more power, or you start getting more power from Horner and you get what Dansby Swanson gave you last year, then maybe you don't need the Wisdom bat at third base, or you don't need Morel to provide that power. They can go back to being role guys, and then you can shift to who's going to give me the best defensive infield, right? Like that potentially could come. Right now on paper, we keep saying still maybe they lack a little power. So that's why instead of if McKinstry is your best option or Mastrobuoni is your best defensive option at third base, I don't know if that's the case. I'm just saying it allows them some versatility depending on how things unfold at other positions. We'll see how it goes. But right now I can't give third base anything higher than a C-. You can't. I can maybe give it a passing grade, but I don't know if I really should give it a passing grade going into it. In fact, I don't think so. C- is too high. It's too high. You have to give it at least a D.
Yeah. I would say like D plus range is where I'm at, just because again, it's one of those like we could project what these guys could do, or say if these things happen, they could be better. It's kind of like what we talked about with Cody Bellinger, right? It's like, yes, you can kind of see where things could get better, but since they haven't yet, how can you can't say that, right? You can't say they're even an average. You can't say this is an average position group because they weren't really average position group last year, right? Like, so you can't really even give them a C. I do think there's ways that Wisdom can improve and Morel can improve. And the way I look at it is, not many teams have all 9. Their entire lineup is full of their 9 set it and forget it guys, right? Like, most teams are going to have a group where you're like, I don't feel like great about it, but that's also like my number 9 position, right? Like, everyone else is set, right? Even if you have, above average production from Morel and Wisdom and whoever else plays third base, like, you'll take that because you don't know for sure that they can be above average. So right now I'm kind of with you, Luke, in that probably like a D plus range is where I'm at, just because they didn't, improve the position group from last season. They have the same names who had, weren't great defensively, had some good offense, but the defense dragged them down, and they didn't do anything really to improve it. Can they improve that grade throughout the season? Of course they can. I think they have the potential to, but right now heading into the season, we can only evaluate that based on what they did last year, and that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah. I mean, I said yesterday
280 and 30 bombs this year from Morel. Dustin, if that happens with Morel, you have your answer at third base. He hits 280 and hits 30 bombs, and he can 2-bounce it over to first base every time, for all I care.
If he hits 280 and hits 30 bombs, you got yourself an all-star and just the biggest fan favorite in the city of Chicago. If Christopher Morel does that. But going off what you guys were saying, I'd probably go a D. I went B on center field yesterday because I just think Bellinger and potentially Morel and whoever else that would be playing center field is still better than what the Cubs had last year. And I don't care what you say about Rafael Ortega, Ryan.
And Bellinger's done it, Cody. Like, the guys at third base haven't shown us that they can be the highest.
They did have a better year than Morel last year. That's all I said. He had a better year
for sure.
The last couple of years.
At least there's something to look at and say, well,
this could happen.
Guy's highest ceiling
is definitely improved center field defensively. And when you're building a team fully based off pitching and defense, then I'll give it a better grade than that. Now at third base, like you guys said, they didn't do anything to change third base up. Like, they didn't go get guys like I was interested in, like Brandon Drury. They didn't. He was so cheap. They got him. Whoever took him got him 2 years, $18 million. There was plenty of guys. They could have traded for Devers, even though I guess now you can probably say the Red Sox are never going to have that. All I know is that, like you guys said, they didn't do anything to change third base. So based off what we got last year from those guys, it's a big, like, it only improves if some of those guys. I'm not even asking for a breakout. I'm just asking for average. Give me average offense with better defense from a combination of those 4, and they ain't gonna be the reason you're losing, I guess.
Niren says half price Javi at the trade deadline. Okay, well, we'll float out there, and we'll finish off the first segment. Javi, trade deadline, possibly your third baseman late in the season. We'll see how that goes. What they need is an absolute meat stick over at third base. Greenridge Farm, by the way, is a local meat and cheese company offering you a better all-natural option. Makers of all-natural deli meat sausages and their famous meat sticks, perfect for tailgating, happy hour, and school lunches. These all-natural meat sticks are hardwood smoked for 8 hours. 16 grams of protein per stick. They make a perfect post-workout snack. Meat sticks come in chicken, black forest beef, jalapeno cheddar, and spicy chili. I like the chicken one. Delicious because they've been made from recipes generations in the making, and being all natural, they deliver a fresh, flavorful alternative at snack time. You'll find them in the refrigeration section at Costco, Sam's Club, all of your Chicagoland grocery stores right now. And right now, when you order 3 meat products at greenridgefarm.com, include a pack of meat sticks, and they are absolutely free just by using the promo code CHGO at checkout. Greenridge Farm, simply natural meat.
Now, on Sunday, everyone loves going to the Super Bowl parties, and you can bring some Green Ridge Farms with you. Bring those meat
That's
sticks.
a great idea. Who's not going to welcome that at the door?
Right. You walk in with a bunch of meat sticks to the Super Bowl party, and I think you'd be everyone's favorite there at this
Better
point.
than bringing in the seventh dip, right?
Yeah. Why bring dips when you can bring meat sticks?
You show up with a bag full of meat sticks.
Yeah. Show up with meat sticks. Bring some Goose Island with you as well. And bring your phone, because DraftKings Sportsbook is where you want to be for the biggest game of the year outside of the Cubs winning the World Series. Are you ready for the biggest Sunday in sports? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 57, has all the Super Bowl action you need. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get in on the Super Bowl 57 excitement with DraftKings Happy Hour Super Boost. I tried to do this ad earlier this week, so bear with me. Check the DraftKings Sportsbook app every day between 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm just going to say it that way because I'm really bad at the time zones.
5 to 8 Central.
Thank you,
Our
Ryan.
time, Chicago time, 5 to 8.
What would we do without you? Tune in between those times to see what prop bet will be boosted on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Like I said yesterday, I'm taking the Eagles. That's it. That's what I'm doing. I also kind of like the novelty of an offensive lineman to score a touchdown from a pass, which is boosted.
I think that might happen.
Which is at like plus 3,500, because I think Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce both score in this game. One, because of the reason to believe that this shit is actually scripted, and also, the NFL would just love the story. So Travis Kelce's like minus 130 to score. Jason Kelce, the offensive lineman for the Eagles, it would be pretty on brand for the NFL if he actually scored. You can get it at plus 3,500. I don't see him running it in, so I think they throw it to him somehow, some way. So
getting a center a touchdown may be a little too difficult, but
it might be.
I don't know. I don't know.
Plus 3,500. Don't bet the house on it. Just a little sprinkle.
Speaking of DraftKings, Cody. Speaking of DraftKings, I have to bring this up because I just saw it. I don't know if they had the odds on Devin Hester to be elected to the Hall of Fame today, but if say it was a pick'em, right? Say it was a pick'em. What would you have bet? Yes or no? Would you have bet on him to get elected or not?
Well, I would have bet yes, but based off what I've read on Twitter today, it looks like I should have bet no. So
Brian Urlacher said on our Bears show, the CHGO Bears show, that he also heard Devin Hester did not get into this year's Pro Football Hall of Fame class.
I got thoughts on that. Let me finish the rest of this ad.
Which is a travesty.
It's a travesty. But
I got done with the ad.
Yeah, let me finish the ad. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code CHGO. New customers can bet $5 on Super Bowl 57 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code CHGO. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And may I say that my transition into this was Luke Stuckmeyer-esque, and I feel very proud about it. Thank you.
Was very nice, and the transition out is perfect, which is why I have in our rundown the Devin Hester story. Like, is he here's what I say. He's not. It sounds like he's not getting in, right? Everybody's saying he's not getting in tonight to the Hall of Fame. So I transition it. Cody, you can give us your rant on Hester, Hall of Famer, not Hall of Famer. Which Cubs player should get more respect? Like, I do think that Devin Hester, if he doesn't get in, it's a lack of respect from other people saying, well, he's a special teams guy. He does, when you tried to play him at wide receiver, he's a special teams guy. And those people generally believe that special teams players just don't belong in the Hall of Fame, whether it's Ray Guy, whether it's Adam Vinatieri, or whoever, Robbie Gold someday, Cody Parkey, whoever you might say.
Why would you say that guy's name?
They would say Devin Hester doesn't play a real position. He's not offense or defense, so you can't put him in the Hall of Fame. I would say that is slightly disrespectful to a guy that did impact the game greatly. So which Cubs player currently do you think deserves more respect than he's getting?
Well, if we want to go recent, I think based off who we've seen get into the Hall recently, I think
it doesn't have to be for the Hall of Fame. Is there a Cubs player on the roster that you think around the league or from us just doesn't get it? the respect.
Not Hall of Fame wise, just
Hall of Fame wise. We can go with that.
I was about to make the argument that John Lester is a Hall of Famer, but a player on the Cubs right now that doesn't get the respect.
The Rodney Dangerfield of this Cubs team, who gets no respect. I was
going to say Rachel said it in the chat, but I was even thinking it. Nico. If you're looking at it from the sense of the top 10 second baseman list.
Oh yeah, Nico's number one on that list, not getting any damn respect.
It felt like he should have been on there somewhere, and the fact that he wasn't, that's one thing. That's the first name that popped in my head. Stroman is maybe another one.
Yeah.
That's a good argument, but he got the respect of an going to the All-Star game.
He's an All-Star and a Gold Glove,
so he is being respected around the league in that way. But I would agree that it might, if I had to pick one guy, I'd probably say Nico.
Yeah, Nico. I can't think of a pitcher because a lot of them are so young or unproven still. I will say that like the projections for Keegan Thompson that we talked about this week, like the steamer projections for him are flat out disrespectful.
They're steaming.
Yeah, they make my steam come out of my ears when I saw them. You know what I mean? Like, I think you could argue that a lot of the projections for a lot of guys for this Cubs team are disrespectful. I mean, even Justin Steele's numbers were like that they project are disrespectful. And in some aspects, like again, they're just projections and whatever. But I'm just saying, yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed from those types of things this offseason. Cubs aren't really getting a lot of respect, but then somehow, the Vegas is setting the over-under line at like 78. So, like, if those guys have those types of if they live up to those projections, I don't see the Cubs winning 78 games if Keegan Thompson finishes the year with a ERA over 4 in 64 appearances and an F4 of 0.4. Like he's going to be a big part of that bullpen in my opinion. So yeah, if I wasn't going to say Nico, I guess you could name a handful of players, I think, just based off the projections that these websites are coming up with.
Yeah, I think if you look at, we talked about Seiya yesterday and the numbers that Luke so happened to put together for us in a nice little package between him and Acuna, the comparisons, like that's a little bit underrated. Like you don't think of Seiya in like even the same stratosphere of Ronald Acuna.
No.
But the numbers last year showed that at least last year itself, they weren't very far apart. Like, is that something that Seiya could like be a guy like that? He may not reach that level of Acuna, but can he start to kind of close in on that? Like, you never know. Like, that's another guy that may be underappreciated because he didn't have this all-star season. He hasn't been in Major League Baseball for a while, but we know he was an awesome player in Japan. He was a Gold Glove defender in Japan. Like, that's one thing. It's like maybe like the number 2 baseball league in the world, and he was a hell of a player in there. Maybe that's where you kind of underappreciate what he did there, and kind of, you don't really think that maybe it won't translate, or you think, oh, like he didn't have that great of a year. Well, you know what? He's 28 years old, just completed his first year of Major League Baseball, was solid by rookie year standards. Is he being underappreciated in a sense? Like that's another name that pops into my head.
Yeah.
Barb is asking, do I mean lack of respect in terms of long-term deal by the team? No, I just mean around baseball or around in Cubs Twitter, anywhere you want to say, is somebody not getting enough respect? Are they being underappreciated? And
like I just said, I feel like
say Kyle Hendricks, I think he gets it around the league. I think people around the league appreciate what Kyle Hendricks is. And has been, but maybe he's not as popular of a name. Yeah. I think Kyle Hendricks gets respect. I really do. I think you saw it from Marcus Stroman when he came in and said, no, Kyle Hendricks is the opening day starter. Even though I'm the big addition to the team, that's a teammate right there showing the respect for Kyle Hendricks. So I think he gets it. I just think that the respect that Nico gets is pretty contained to Chicago and pretty contained to the north side of Chicago.
Yeah. I kind of said Dansby Swanson there. It kind of, because like he was looked at as like the worst of the 4 shortstops. Like, and I don't know. Like, I was pretty happy that the Cubs got him. I know there's Cubs fans out there that still rather would probably have one of the other 3, but I think he might have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder coming into year one, which is not something you see from a lot of first-year free agents signing 7-year contracts.
Yeah, 7-year, 9-figure contracts. Yeah.
Well, he got the respect of some cash, some
For
serious
sure,
cash.
for sure.
There's his respect.
It's not that he has really much to prove into how he earned that contract. It's just, I don't know. I think that, I guess for him to get full respect for being one of the best shortstops in the league, I think offensively he has to put together a few more seasons like he did last season with the Braves, and then he really would be considered someone like that. I think around the league people see Swanson as a great defensive shortstop who, I guess emerged late as a hitter, and whether if you get respect or not from around the league, I don't know. I think he has respect around the league based off what we've heard about him, but maybe from a fan perspective, a lot of people don't necessarily think he's one of the top shortstops in the league. And just based off what I've seen on social media or, the reaction to the Cubs signing.
I'll deal with that. Well, should we evaluate starting pitcher? Because if third base was the Achilles heel or the biggest question mark, I said center field's got the biggest range of boom or bust for the Cubs. Third base has more depth, but I think it's a bigger question mark than center field is. I would say starting pitcher is the best spot on the Cubs. Like I actually feel best about the rotation. Maybe it's shortstop, maybe it's second base, but I can certainly make an argument for you in starting rotation. And that's why my grade is B+ for the rotation. It's not an A because we have to see what they do, but I love the addition of Taillon. I think Stroman gives you dependability, and they probably don't have the ace that you would attach an A grade to a rotation. Some teams have two aces where you attach the A. If I had to grade them against the Brewers, I can't grade them as high as the Brewers, but they do have 7, 8, 9 names where I feel pretty good about that guy going to the mound, no matter who he's going against on the other team. So I wrote down these names. You tell me who I'm leaving off. Stroman, Taillon, Steele, Smiley, and then probably fifth starter with Hendricks hurt, Wesneski or Sampson, right?
Sampson. I mean, you got Assad in there.
Right. So Assad. Who else? Killian?
Potentially. Killian's he is in the 40-man, so like in a pinch, like they could bring him up. I think
Keegan?
I would say Keegan and Adbert because they have that experience. But I do believe from what I've heard and the conversations I've had that the Cubs are just looking to make them full-time relievers, like maybe spot start here and there,
right?
But like keeping them as part of rotation is probably, it might not be in the books for them anymore. I think the Cubs really like what they have, what those guys bring out of the bullpen. And so at least definitely to start the year, that's probably where they're going to be at. And then, as baseball happens, right? So the injuries may pile up again like they did last year. And then one or both of those guys are forced to go back in the rotation. But I think you can include them in that group because as far as spot starts go or guys that could capably start at the big league, like you could also probably include those two names. But as far as like the outlook for the rotation, I don't know that I'd definitely include them as far as like these guys are going to have at some point be in the rotation this year. It's a weird little dynamic just because of the expected roles for them this year.
Yeah. You said
that brings it up to like 10 or 11 potential names, right? Like guys that could, if you need someone to start a game, like those guys could.
It's good depth. It's not great depth, right? Like it has the chance to develop into great depth depending on which young guys develop and improve and show that they can take that spot. Like if Wesneski grabs the reins and becomes way better than a fifth starter this season, and you look at him and say, wow, he could be a 2 or a 3 on some teams, and he has a breakout season, all of a sudden everybody shifts down from there, and you can look at this rotation and start to say, okay, they're a name away. They're 2 names away. Right now they have good depth, not great depth, and they have a chance to prove that they have great depth if guys develop.
Yeah, I mean, right now you look at their top 3, Steele, Stroman, and Taillon. you feel pretty good in terms of being able to eat innings, go deeper into games, which was a big problem they had last year. And then you got Drew Smiley and Adrian Sampson, Kyle Hendricks eventually. Yeah, they got great depth. And I didn't even get to Javier Assad and Keegan Thompson or Albert Alzolay. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, the depth is great. And they had the second best earn run average in baseball in the second half last year. So you're bringing some momentum from that coming into this year. And, barring injury, yeah, I mean, I think that the rotation, I feel really good about it. Yeah, they don't really have a number one. They don't have a guy like Jacob deGrom that can go out there, strike out 10 to 12 guys every single start and just completely shut a lineup down. No, a lot of teams don't have that, though, to be honest with you. And, kind of like I said with the other ones, like you look at the rotation going to last year, there's questions. There wasn't a lot of depth. It was the biggest reason why that team was so bad in the first half. And if they're bad again in the first half this year, I just don't think it's going to be because of the pitching this time. If they're bad, it's because they ain't scoring runs, in my opinion. So, I'm with Luke here, B+, because I think they improved the problems they had in it, and there's definitely reason to believe that they could that could go higher because. I've said it a few times already. I think Taillon can be better than what he's been in recent years. Now that he's another year off of Tommy John, and the Cubs pitching infrastructure getting, the pitch lab, whatever, like they're getting their hands on him to see, to make him better than he already is. I think that like
the defense should make him better too, Cody.
Yeah, the defense
should make most of these guys better this season,
right? And Wesneski, like Luke said as well. I mean. He is a big wild card here in terms of how many wins this team could have. And, there's some guys on the farm too that I'm not saying they're come up and be major contributors, but if we see Jordan Wicks in the middle of the year, or even DJ Hers or someone like that, maybe Killian finds his command finally, and like then you're really talking about some real studs in this rotation, especially if some injuries happen. Yeah, I mean the sky's kind of the limit for the rotation. I think that should be probably the number one thing we should all be excited about going into 2023, outside of just the defense from the infield especially. So
yeah. Luke, would you give it a B+?
I gave it a B+, and I'm curious, Ryan, if you think like strikeout power, like developing some guys that can strike guys out more, if that would be the thing that might impact these grades more than anything, right? I'm curious what your grade is, but I'm also curious if you think that developing guys that can do miss bats will be the thing that would push them from a B+ to like shooting towards baseball elite.
Well, I think that's part of it. I agree in the sense that they have, they don't have that ace number one guy. When, I mean, you look at, it's hard to compare it to 2016 because that was a really, really good team, of course. But like they had 2, maybe even 3 number one guys in that rotation, right? The Cubs don't have one right now, really. Right. You can argue Stroman or Taillon might be like a number 2 kind of guy, but they're missing that top tier starter. They don't have that, so that limits their ceiling in a sense. But as far, I mean, they have, Steele is a big, low barrel rate, low strikeout rate kind of guy, right? Marcus Stroman, ground ball, low strikeout kind of guy. Kyle Hendricks, when he's healthy, he's a ground ball, low strikeout guy. They have a lot of those guys that keep the ball on the ground, but also don't strike out a lot of guys. And I know Brendan has talked about that in the past, that if you have the ability to just make guys swing and miss, that limits like your margin for error, right? Or that expands your margin for error, because if you're pumping fastballs by guys, or you just have wipeout sliders, then you can maybe miss here and there because you can always come back with it, or there's still competitive misses, right? Mm-hmm. When you have just guys that rely on command and keeping the ball on the ground, then that margin for error slims back down. So they have a lot of those guys in the rotation right now, in the who will be in the rotation to start the year, and even their depth. So that hurts the grade in my opinion. I'm probably more in like the B- range, because they don't have that swing and miss ability really. Guys like Wisniewski have that with the slider. They don't have a ton of velocity, which hurts. and they don't have that ace number one starter. I think that their ceiling is limited. I think I love the depth that they've built. I think you have at least a good 8 names that you feel comfortable being in the rotation. So I think the floor is high because of that depth. I don't think the ceiling is as high as it could be, and the Cubs are obviously building toward.
Yeah,
I mean, that's true. I agree. The floor's much higher than it's been in a long time, and until certain guys develop, the ceiling will be what it is.
Yeah,
I do think while you don't want a whole rotation of Kyle Hendricks, it's funny that when he was, in the running for Cy Young and he's taking the Cubs to the World Series and he's pitching Game 7, he still didn't have any of those things. And so it doesn't mean that type of pitcher can't be your ace. He can. That guy can still be your ace if he's really elite at what he's doing for that season. But what you're saying is the margin of error is improved by having incredible stuff.
Do you think this rotation is better than St. Louis's?
I have to take a look at St. Louis.
I don't think it's better than the Brewers rotation because they don't
definitely not better than the Brewers.
Not by
That's
a
why
lot.
I didn't say Brewers. We all know.
Yeah, but I think they can be as. Jack Flaherty, you don't know what you have in the guy. Like, he has better stuff than a lot of guys on the Cubs. Do I see that he is a guy that could be an ace? Yes, but he can never stay healthy. Yeah. Never. And I don't know. I could see it could be comparable. It's just different, right? I think they have a different type of rotation, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily better.
They had one of the best defenses in the league last year, which really helped their rotation out. They're basically bringing back the same team again.
I think when I look at it, I look at Miles Michaelis had an all-star season last year, but he's also I think he's 33. Mm-hmm. So it's another one. It's he's a year older. Can he keep that
200 innings last year too? I believe.
Yeah, exactly. Can he do that again? Right, he's getting older. Can he keep doing that? Adam Wainwright's pitching again, and he has that whole "it's my last season." Maybe he finds something extra. But he also, I think he had a really bad second half, if I'm not mistaken. At least the last couple of months, was pretty bad. Jack Flaherty, Luke mentioned. I remember, 2021, I covered a few Cardinals games, and a few of those were Jack Flaherty starts. And that first month and a half or so, he was in the Cy Young conversation. He was fantastic. So he has that ability to be someone that pitches in the Cy Young that's in the Cy Young conversation. The Cubs don't really have that right now, at least on paper. But the Cardinals do. But it's also a question of can he stay healthy, because he really hasn't for the last couple of years. Jordan Montgomery was really good with the Cardinals. I think you feel good about him, and they got some good guys. I don't know how to say his last name. Matthew Liberatore, something like that is how you say it. He's
right.
He'll probably be in that rotation too. But he's also a young guy, doesn't have a whole lot of big league experience. So I think maybe
a top 100 prospect. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you look at it, the depth, I think I like the Cubs' depth a lot more. But I think the Cubs have, as far as depth go, they're in the higher end of the teams in the majors. I think as far as depth and guys that you feel comfortable starting games. The Cardinals may have higher end pitching when it's all said and done. But again, that's why you play the games, right? That's why you play baseball, because stuff happens throughout the year that if you don't have the depth, you have to have really good injury luck, and we'll see if the Cardinals have that.
The Cardinals may have better pitchers for the postseason if they get there. They may have a better rotation to throw out for playoff games than the Cubs do. But if you're talking about regular season impact, I think the Cubs can hang with them. So that's where I think one of the areas where I think they've been able to shrink the gap between the Cardinals and themselves in the offseason is by adding all that depth in the rotation. If injuries happen, which they almost certainly do for every team throughout the season, the Cubs may be better equipped to handle it than they have been in other years. Ryan, where do you get your dope merch other than the CHGO locker? Where do you get your dopest merch?
My dopest merch. So I was actually thinking about this. If Devin Hester were to have made the Hall of Fame, there would have been a really awesome place to probably go get some dope merch, some dope Devin Hester merch. Yeah, he didn't anyway, but I'm still going to go check it out, and you should too. It's FOCO. Chicago, you've already got the best coverage for your favorite team, so get fitted out in the best sports gear around. Foco's got you covered from Soldier Field to the living room, north side or south side, with hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. Get decked out like DeMar with apparel from the leader in sports merch and collectibles, Foco. Looking for the perfect gift for the football fan in your life? Foco's got you covered with hoodies to fight that Lake Michigan breeze. Check out foco.com or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Yeah, Foco, I'm telling you, they would have had some good stuff coming up if Devin Hester had made the Hall of Fame, but you know, the Hall wants to keep him out for whatever reason. He's the best. He was the best. He was the best at what he was asked to do in the history of football, and they don't want to recognize it. He's the best. He's like Hall of Famer in my book.
By the way, says he got the Dansby Swanson bobblehead from Foco.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
With the Bulls doing nothing at the trade deadline, I'm now convinced that adding Hayden Wisniewski is obviously a way better trade. Even though we sat there going, "What? They didn't trade the big guys. They didn't trade the big guys we expected." More happened for the Cubs certainly than it did for the Bulls because they had nothing happen.
Yep.
Is it passed?
Oh, is it over? Nothing happened.
I think it's done. That he's standing pat.
I thought it was. I thought it was until 3 Central.
I thought it was 3 Eastern. No,
I want to say it was that. So yeah.
I don't know. I don't think they're doing anything. That's what I'm saying.
CHGO Bulls account. Go follow them. CHGO_Bulls.
They're the experts.
Tweeted out video the 2 p.m. NBA trade deadline passes without news of any Bulls moves. That was 7 minutes ago.
There you go. See. All right.
Damn it, no D Rose. I was hoping for
no D Rose.
Unreal.
So we've talked about prospect lists multiple times this offseason. The newest one from ESPN, and who's the writer? Kylie McDaniel.
Yeah.
Kylie McDaniel goes 150 players for they don't do top 100, they do top 150. The Cubs have 9 players in the top 150. And again, while I will try to tell everybody just relax, don't get too excited, don't get too disappointed by any top 100, whatever, any prospect list that comes out. Don't let it impact your daily life. I like the sound of 9 guys in the top 150, but keep in mind it's good. It's very good, but the other teams in the division, the Reds, the Pirates, the Cardinals, they have 6. So it's not like the other teams in the division have nobody in the top 150. They've improved the farm system. We can all agree on that. We think they're going to get much better. Am I doing cartwheels over 9 guys in the top 150? No, but
are you sure?
I was surprised to see Jordan Wicks is like number 2 on their list.
Yeah. I was excited to see it because I
number
think
2
he
for the
deserves
Cubs.
Maybe he's the guy who isn't getting enough respect as a prospect. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's a first-round pick, left-handed. Like I know he doesn't throw 99, but he has all the makings to be a very solid starter at the major league level. I don't know if he can be a top-end guy, but if the Cubs were taking him in the first round, they saw something in him a few years ago. So I think he could make some sort of impact on this team if they're in it. I think he can be something for them mid-season. So we'll see. I'm excited to see him on there. Excited. I saw that video of Kevin Alcantara yesterday. Brendan took it and put it next to Sammy Sosa. Like he took 2 side-by-side videos.
Early. It's a little early.
I was like, all I'm saying is like, thank God on Twitter, like, not that I'm going and looking for it, but like you could see some shit on Twitter if you know what I mean. And that was some shit. Like what that video gave me was, don't tell me that the Cubs don't have star potential in on the farm somewhere. Like, because watching this guy swing the bat and make contact with the baseball, I don't care if this is batting practice. This guy, there's something in this guy, and we'll see. Unfortunately,
how can everybody get so excited from a slow-mo swing at a BP pitch? Come on, like, I don't want to be Captain Buzzkill here, but it's a slow-mo of a pitch through a machine. Like,
This is all we got, Stock.
We're so desperate for something of star quality that it's just that we're going to slow-mo one swing from BP, and it's not even technically spring training yet.
All right, well, let's go to our guy Greg Huss. He's tweeted about Kevin Alcantara before, and he believes he could be a top 20 prospect in baseball by the end of the year.
I'm not saying anything about
star power,
potential, or star power, or any of that. Like, I hope he's better than Sammy Sosa. I hope he's the greatest prospect in the history of the Cubs farm system. I'm just saying, one slow-mo picture of the guy, one tiny slow-mo gif of the guy in Arizona before spring training starts, I can't say I got chills from it.
Well, everyone in the chat's saying 460 feet, which I didn't know. So if it was like
what I would
got power.
What I would want to see is like I guess like a frame by frame kind of like how is this swing, like is it improved from previous swings? Because when prospects get in the system, like they have to tinker with like everything, right? I want to see what this one looks like compared to what it was when he first got in the system or even last couple of years, whatever. But back onto that prospect list, and you mentioned how they have 9 in the top 150, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at like the top 120, they have 6, right? They have the top 3 PCA, Jordan Wicks, and Kevin Alcantara in this top 100. But then Christian Hernandez, Hayden Wesneski, Owen Casey are all between 113 and 118. And the way I look at it is when people are freaking out about top 100 lists and, how do the Cubs only have 3 top 100 prospects? It's like, what's the difference between number 100 and number 113? No, 100, 160. There really isn't much, right? There's not that much space in between them. So you would look at it, I'm glad that Kylie McDaniel kind of balances out even more to the top 150 because you can see that the Cubs have a lot of guys who are right on the cusp of being top 100. They're not absolute top 100 prospects, whatever, but they're right on the cusp, right? And in big years, guys at the top of the list will graduate, and that happens. Guys somewhere in the middle of the list will graduate, and that happens too. That opens up spots. But then if these guys start to have really, really good years, there's definitely scenarios where those guys force their way into the top 100. So just because the Cubs only had 3 on most of these lists doesn't mean there's not 4 or 5-ish guys right on the outside ready to hop in there.
We got a
Fernando
super chat.
with a super chat, right?
Yeah.
Can we just have hopes from video? Give us that. I apologize if maybe I misphrased this, Fernando. I don't want to tell you how to Cub. If you want to go around running around your living room yelling Alcantara, 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 if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. I'm just saying it didn't give me chills. That's how I'm Cubbing. I'm watching it saying it's a gif of a guy in slow-mo taking batting practice before spring training. It's not getting me super excited, but if it gets you just so excited that you're ready to run out the front door and take all your clothes off and yell Alcantara out in the middle of the street, well, A, you might get arrested, but B, go ahead. I don't care.
Oh, Colada also brings us down saying, I hit a 16-inch softball 310 feet, so what? So thank you, Colada, for always keeping us grounded. All I was saying, though, is that there's a lot of people that don't think there's, like, star potential in terms of, like, guys who are coming. I'm not necessarily saying this year, but even next year, I feel like people were saying that. It's like, I don't know how anyone can see that based off what we saw from PCA last year. And even Alcantara and Myrtle Beach, where I think Greg Huss even told us that, like, it's hard to hit in Myrtle Beach. So he's going to go to South Bend this year. And if he has a PCA type year there in a combination of double A, even maybe if that happens, then you're like, wow, we got 2 studs in the outfield. And then you really got to start asking, like, what are you going to do with Ian Happ? But that's a conversation for whenever. I'm just saying that I do think that the Cubs deserve a little bit more credit for having, like, actual dudes that could make an impact, like a big impact at the major league level one day. Now, do they have guys who can make an impact this year? Like maybe Brennan Davis, but we just don't know. He's coming off that injury. But he was a top 20 prospect too at one point. So, I don't know, but I'm just saying the Alcantara video was awesome. That way I could feel something. Okay.
And also the funny thing is when you look at Brennan Davis, like his like last year, and it just like when you just look at it rankings wise, shows you how volatile prospects are, right? Like, you put your eggs in the basket if you'd like, but like don't live or die by Kevin Alcantara's ability to hit 460 home runs, right? Like that may not happen every time, but he does have some star power. I'll give you that. And I think everyone's talking about him hitting in Myrtle Beach, a historically hard place for minor leaguers to hit. Like that's a pretty big deal. But don't put your eggs all in that basket. Like let him develop and give it a couple years and then you can get really excited for him.
Well, now wait, Ryan. Now you're telling him how to cub. We don't want to tell everybody how to cub.
All right, I'm talking to myself. I'm telling myself.
You're talking to yourself. Okay, I understand.
He's talking about not to get too excited.
We've already reached the 1 hour mark, but I have an important question before we leave, and that is for everybody. Today is National Pizza Day.
Ooh.
Give me your pizza. I don't care if you're telling me where it's from, what the pizza is, you could tell me it's deep dish, you could tell me it's thin crust. I'll tell you this. Mine is never folded. Mine is a Chicago pizza. It's going to come in squares. And if I have my favorite pizza, here's what my favorite pizza is. I like all the Chicago places. I like deep dish. I like thin crust. What I don't like is Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Domino's. Like those are the ones. I'm not going to waste my time on that. I'm trying to eat better. So if I'm eating pizza, I'm going sausage, onion, bacon, basil. Tom Waddle calls it the SOB, the sausage, onion, bacon. That's a great combo. I started with that, but now I've added just a dash of basil. The SOBB is my pizza. Sausage, onion, bacon, basil.
Swab.
Go for it.
Swab.
I'm picking one. I'm going. Luke, you actually may know this place, Vinny's Pizza, Elk Grove Village, right on the corner of Arlington Heights and Higgins. Meat lovers, full slice. I love every pizza. Pretty much, it's really hard for me to not like a pizza, but that's my number one. I grew up on it. You still
buy single slice there? That's a single slice place.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Single full slice of meat lovers pizza. I think it's bacon, sausage, pepperoni, maybe hams on it. I'm not sure, but single full slice of Vinny's meat lovers pizza. You got me,
Cody. You got to do some pizza for the Super Bowl. What's it going to be?
All right. We here, me and her, we get thin crust from Lou Malnati's, and it's usually cheese. That's not my decision. That's hers. If it was up to me,
that's what I'm asking. How do you pizza? if she's out of town, say like in Mexico for a wedding that you can't get to, what is the pizza you're ordering at home to make yourself feel better?
I'm probably getting meat lovers thin crust from Lou Malnati's.
From Malnati's.
Since I've lived in Chicago, Lou Malnati's is always been my go-to. That said, everyone knows I'm from downstate in the middle of nowhere. And for anyone listening that might live downstate, y'all know what Monocle's is. And it's a treasure downstate. That's all I'm going to say.
Ryan, have you ever had Tortorices?
I've never had Tortorices.
There's one that's not far from me. I think it's on Irving Park. I've thought about trying it.
Solid.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I love pizza.
Anyway,
I'm going to get some today. I've actually thought about trying a new place today. So, yeah, DM me some ideas. That's on the north side. Send me places on the north side, north of Irving Park Road. Thank you.
Don't fold your pizza. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Brendan and Corey, I'll have another podcast for you coming up on Friday. We'll see you back here on Monday. And don't forget, the Hayden Wesneski interview is coming next week. Until then, fly the W.